sometimes even the phone book tells a story. Let's see, here's Schab, Schaufelberger, Schilling, Schlelein, Schmidt, Schmidt, Schneider, Schrader, as we say at Milwaukee, Schultz, Schumacher, Schwarzenberger, and finally Schwulst. Those are all German names. There are 22 pages of names beginning with SCH in the Milwaukee phone book, and there are nearly as many Schmidts as there are Smiths. But that's not all. Where else but Milwaukee do people of all backgrounds meet to play a German card game called Schafskopf, or Sheep's Head? Where else do they have schnecks, or sweet rolls, with their morning coffee? And what are Milwaukee's prevailing stereotypes? Beer and bratwurst, both German favorites. What it all adds up to is that Milwaukee is the most German metropolis in America. In the last census, nearly 40% of the population claimed at least some German ancestry. German landmarks are still abundant, including this one, Mater's Restaurant.
Milwaukee began as a Yankee village, a colony of transplants from New York and New England. The city's leading neighborhood was Yankee Hill, an enclave overlooking downtown that's still a desirable address. But Milwaukee soon became something quite different, a city of immigrants. In 1850, just 5 years after the Bridge War, an astounding 64% of the city's residents were foreign-born. Nearly all were from Europe, and most were Germans. The story of immigration can be told in 2 words: push and pull. Europe was a continent in turmoil during the mid-1800s. Germany was rocked by political unrest. Ireland suffered terrible potato famines. The Scandinavian countries had too many people and not enough land. Trouble touched nearly every Western European country, creating enormous pressures to leave ancestral homelands. If the push from Europe was strong, the pull of America was almost overpowering. A deluge of immigrants began just as Milwaukee was getting started. Between 1845 and 1855, the city's first decade, nearly 3 million Europeans immigrated to the United States. Some, especially the Irish, went no farther than the old coastal towns. Others, especially the Germans, kept going until they reached the frontier. That meant the Midwest in the mid-1800s, particularly Wisconsin. Germans were the largest group arriving at precisely the time Wisconsin was opening to newcomers. For reasons entirely circumstantial, Wisconsin and Milwaukee became the leading centers of German settlement in the country. As the immigrants sent glowing reports back home, even more decided to leave Europe. By 1860, Germans made up the majority of Milwaukee's population. The city's Germans formed one of the most diverse ethnic communities America has ever known. In some respects, the only thing they had in common was language. Germany wasn't even a country until 1871. A Pomeranian from the north and a Bavarian from the south were strangers in Europe, and they had little more in common here. Some newcomers were rich. Frederick Miller, founder of the brewery that still bears his name, arrived with $10,000 in gold. Many of his workers, by contrast, landed with little more than the clothes on their backs. But poverty, for most, was a temporary condition. Religious differences proved much more persistent. The greatest number of German immigrants, perhaps a third, were Roman Catholic. In 1846, the year Milwaukee became a city, they built St. Mary's Church, now Old St. Mary's, in the heart of downtown. Other Germans were devoutly and dividedly Lutheran. Their strongholds included Trinity Church, a Missouri Synod landmark on 9th Street, and St. John's Lutheran, a pioneer Wisconsin Synod church just 3 blocks north. St. John's offered services in German until 1986. Still other immigrants were Reformed, Methodist, Baptist, and Jewish. By 1856, German Jews had organized at least 3 synagogues. Political differences were even more colorful. In 1848, a failed uprising against royal rule in Germany let loose a group of well-educated revolutionaries. Several of the 48ers, as they were called, settled in Milwaukee, where they had a profound impact on the city's cultural life. The group's leaders included Peter Engelmann, an educator who believed that children should learn directly from nature. The scientific specimens he gathered became the nucleus of the Milwaukee Public Museum's collection. Matilda Aniki, another notable 48er, was Milwaukee's first feminist. In 1852, she launched a newspaper called Woman's Times and hired an all-female crew to set her type. The city's male typesetters were so upset that they formed a union and drove the women out of their trade. Most 48ers were free thinkers who wanted nothing to do with the church-going Germans. Some abhorred Roman Catholicism especially, as much as they did royalty. The radicals longed for the day when, as one picturesquely put it, the last priest has been hung with the intestines of the last prince. Another 48er institution, the Turnverein, or Turner Society, was less controversial and more durable. Devoted to building a sound mind in a sound body, the Turners combined gymnastics with a socialist political philosophy. Their main hall on 4th Street is still a cherished Milwaukee landmark, and still a center for gymnastics. There were differences, even divisions, within Milwaukee's German community, but there were also unifying influences. Neighborhood was one. The west side of the river, the area around Turner Hall, once housed perhaps the greatest concentration of Germans west of Berlin. North 3rd Street, now Old World 3rd, was their downtown. Some merchants reportedly put signs in their windows reading, "English spoken here," just to avoid scaring away the occasional non-German who wandered by. Culture was another point of convergence. There was something for every German in Milwaukee. From theatrical troupes and Turner halls to symphonies and singing societies. The city became such a stronghold of Teutonic culture that it was dubbed the German Athens of America. But Milwaukee's Germans also shared a fondness for the smaller pleasures of life. Home and hearth. Good friends, good food, and a good glass of lager. They sought a domestic tranquility, summed up in a single word, Gemutlichkeit. Beer was most definitely part of the equation. By 1856, there were more than 24 breweries in the city, all turning out German Milwaukee's beverage of choice. The leaders included Philip Best, who had able assistance from his son-in-law, a lake captain named Frederick Pabst. Joseph Schlitz was a German-born bookkeeper who married his employer's widow and took over the brewery. Valentin Brats was a walking contradiction, a successful businessman and a devout socialist. Frederick Miller multiplied his production from 300 barrels a year to 80,000 during his long career. All of these immigrants started breweries that would become some of the largest in the world. They also sponsored beer gardens that became Milwaukee institutions. In the days before adequate public parks, German families packed these sylvan retreats every Sunday afternoon during the summer months. The gardens offered music, food, and liquid refreshment. But the real attraction was community. Milwaukee's German community was admirably complete. Strong in numbers, rich in diversity, and culturally secure, it became a dominant influence on the city as a whole. Even the early Germans knew they had something special. In 1850, immigrant John Curler described his new hometown.
Milwaukee is the only place in which I have found that the Americans concern themselves with learning German, and that the German language and German ways are bold enough to take a foothold. You will find inns, beer cellars, and billiard and bowling alleys, as well as German beer, something you do not find much of in the country. The Dutchman, the Americans call the German this name by way of derision, has even managed to get laws printed in German. You will find no other place in which so much has been given to Germans. And if you value this, you may safely prefer Wisconsin, and especially Milwaukee, to other places.